What's up, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Building companies require a lot of things: a stellar product, amazing people, health insurance, business insurance, subscription services, productivity tools, accounting software, legal services, reliable equipment, and before the pandemic, office space. But that's for you to decide. But to get all of these resources, you need money. To secure this, investor decks serve as the most important resource you can leverage in raising capital. The investor deck, also known as a pitch deck, gives a detailed and concise snapshot of your company to attract investors, both venture capital firms and angel investors. So for this video, we'll cover how to build an investor deck and optimize for success, namely what 11 slides you must include in your deck. I'll also include a free template for you so you can apply this for your business. And so lucky you, this is free. And so let's get started. Starting with number 1. Start with the catchy title slide. Every slide counts. Investors are looking for reasons to say no, and honestly, you'll probably get a lot of them. I sure did. That said, you need to make sure you brand yourself and include your name. Logo if you have one, and include a catchy sentence to stand out that is associated with your company name. For example, in Coinbase's seed round deck, they stood out describing themselves as your hosted Bitcoin wallet. And so when you think about it, now obviously Bitcoin, crypto, Coinbase, they're all popular now and today in 2021. But back in 2012, that wasn't the same thing. And so for them, this was a very easy way to encapsulate what they were trying to present to the market. And so for your company, make sure you have a punchy line because every slide counts for your pitch deck. Number 2, why now? Highlight the macro level trends that complement your problem. For example, what is happening in the market that you saw firsthand that's a problem? And if you think about, let's say, the mobile space, let's say there's a huge shift going from web to mobile, that would be something you'd want to highlight to substantiate your problem. In addition, is there something shifting with, let's say, budget? And so if you're a B2B software company, that will be something that really will substantiate what you're trying to say. So again, especially at the beginning, you want to hook the listener. VCs get a ton of decks every day, and so really trying to stand out and make and present yourself in a very, very sexy way, you're going to want to make sure that you have everything to really help your case. Number 3, the problem. Introduce the problem that your startup proposes to solve. For example, what specifically are you seeing in the market that no one else saw? And so we covered this in previous videos, but when you really think about what specifically is the gap? What is specifically the inefficiency? And if there's something in the market you're looking to replace, what can you piggyback off of that to make it easy to really understand the problem statement? If we think about just what is the common ground and what is this clear opportunity, you want to make sure that you can highlight in the world today, what are you trying to disrupt? And so there also has to be something in the future where for an investor, again, the 100x the investment for a seed investor for their investment, you need to make sure that they see a foreseeable future to eventually go IPO, exit, and if that's getting acquired or going through a merger and acquisition, that is exactly what they need to understand for your problem statement. Number 4, the solution. There are 2 objectives here. One is really first understanding what is the vision of your company. What is that big idea that you want to land when you, let's say, go public or when you're trying to exit in a merger and acquisition? You'll need to really make sure that this connects to that problem and also to the situation that you shared, right? So this is specifically that is going to allow them to get super excited that you're going to have a unique angle when you leverage your product in the market to understand how are you going to attract and obtain customers. So, as we discussed in a previous video talking about what you need to know and how you get to know customers, this is going to allow your investors to understand what are you trying to build. So at the very beginning, you may have a wedge, but then as you look to expand, what eventually are you trying to get to? And then as a second objective, you're going to want to make sure that you highlight why are you so special? So I know I kind of shared that in the first objective, but the unique angle and what you're going to be doing differently sets you apart that allows them to really figure out why you're the person they want to bet on. Investing, and when you talk about venture capital, it's a zero-sum game. If they're focusing and trying to invest in you, that money could have been going towards another startup. So to really help and prioritize your company and to prioritize your investment, you need to make sure that your solution stands out. Number 5, The competition. This should consist of a visual comparing your solution with alternatives. The comparison criteria should be those that a customer would use to evaluate in a buying decision and should highlight where you are differentiated. So again, unique differentiation is going to be very, very important. So a way to do this, and the way I prefer to leverage this, is using a 2x2 to highlight this. And so again, for your x-axis, think about what allows you to stand out. So if that's going to be something where you're better in terms of what you're able to provide, so let's say that you have better and more effective software, you can put that there. And then for your y-axis, think about something that revolves around price. So are you cheaper? Is there something that allows people to get cost savings? So as you think about your 2x2 matrix to show and highlight your competition, make sure that you can highlight there what specifically would fit in your 2x2 axis. I know other people like to do something different, but again, this is just what I prefer. Number 6, the opportunity. This is also known as your market sizing. I shared examples of to take a bottom-up approach to really calculate the TAM, the SAM, the SOM in a previous video, and you can check that out right there. But again, for this video, we'll want to make sure that you're highlighting in your investor deck how big of a market that you're actually trying to tackle. So, again, TAM is sufficient when you're talking with investors, but, what does that compile of, or what does that encompass? So that's essentially your customer profiles. If you were to obtain 100% of the market, you then multiply that by the average price that you plan to get from each customer. Again, this is on an annual basis, and that will equal your TAM. So that's something that you'll need to understand, that you'll want to highlight. So if this is a market that an investor from, let's say, a venture capital firm is going to want to pursue, you need to make sure it's a large market and it's sexy enough for them to actually want to take forward. So highlight your TAM, make sure you do the calculations. If you also want to highlight, let's say, your SAM and SOM, those are just going to be subsets of your TAM. Let's say with different business models, if you're using your SAM, and for the SOM, that's going to be your serviceable obtainable market. But in the deck that I shared, you can leverage that, and so it makes it easy for you to just input the numbers. But again, make sure that the market's big enough. Again, when we look at the bottom-up approach, this is an easy way that's going to be defensible. So if investors are trying to poke holes, and I know they will try to, this is a way that you can really show your hypothesis, your assumptions, and really leverage logic instead of taking a top-down approach, which is going to be the lazy way. So instead of taking the work from someone else that may be wrong, you have the bottom-up approach that leverages the numbers, and that's going to have a defensible approach so you can feel confident in your pitches. Number 7, go to market. And essentially this means, how will you make money? So to answer these questions, what is your business model? Why is this business model optimal given the product and your buyer? Who is your target buyer? This is not a screenshot of your pricing page, but rather a summary of the strategy behind your business model. So again, you'll need to really highlight to investors to see, how do they really believe in your business? What are you going to be doing to generate revenue? How are you going to get customers? So, you may have heard sales-driven approaches, which are going to leverage a sales force, which is the very expensive way, also known as a top-down approach. This is one way that you can approach this if you're, let's say, an enterprise. Another way, which my company leverages, is a bottom-up approach. And so this leverages, let's say, pushing content, being where developers are. So if that's, let's say, Discord communities, Slack channels, but really being and understanding that for a developer, for example, they don't want to buy from a salesperson. They want to consume and find products in the way that they prefer it, which is on their own. So when you think about just different business models, make sure that you are able to justify and highlight what are you going to be doing differently to approach a market so you can consume a very, very large percentage of that TAM that you shared in your previous slide. Number 8, roadmap and how you plan to win. You'll want to share an 18 to 24 month timeline of where your product's going to go. So if, let's say, you have multiple phases, what's going to happen in phase 1 versus phase 2 versus in phase 3 over that time span. So that's going to be one angle that you'll need to highlight. And then from a business standpoint, let's say if you want to start your business on a top-down approach and shift to a bottom-up, where does that fall within that roadmap? So essentially, when you think about slide 8, this ultimately highlights your execution plan. So for investors, this minimizes risk for them to understand, are you actually taking a calculated approach in how you tackle this market? Do you have rhyme and reason behind how you tackle this today? But again, this is your execution plan, so you want to highlight as much as possible here. Again, not just throwing words on this slide, but in a very succinct way, reflect the differentiation within your view and the way that you plan to attack it, so they can firmly believe that you are the right team to do this. Number 9, traction. This is your moment to flex if you have progress. Show off a little bit. For example, you have big customers and you have the logos. So let's say you work with Apple, Slack, AppLovin, EA Games, Nike. These are just ways to really show the outputs that you had so far. It's actually very, very hard to sell. And, as Peter Thiel once said, and shared in his book From Zero to One, getting that first customer is going to be very big. And so if you can flex and if you can highlight revenue, adoption, usage, that's going to be a very, very telling sign of your company and the success that's bound for it. So for this slide, make sure you're able to highlight what you've done so far to date. That's going to be really, really sexy to show investors. If you don't have much here, maybe you can consider removing it. But, again, these are going to be the questions they ask in order to make the investment. So, the question I would ask yourself if you have nothing to show here, is this the right time to raise, let's say, venture capital money? Is this the right time to raise money? You can only answer that, but this is going to be a very important slide to really consider as you move forward and as you build your investor deck. Number 10, the ask. Fundraising and milestones here is going to be really, really important to highlight. If I think about what I want to put here, you're going to want to put how much money you're raising. So this can be a specific number. So, let's say you're raising $2 million. Just write $2 million. Another way to approach this, I've actually leveraged this in the past, is you can actually write a range. So for example, if you're looking to raise, let's say between $2 to $3 million, you can put that there and let different investors come to the table and say how much do they actually want to buy within your round. So that's one way to approach this. In addition, as a pro tip, you want to make sure that you never put the price of what you're asking for. So, a mistake I've seen in some startup decks is people will say they're selling, let's say, or they're looking to raise $2 to $3 million, and that's going to be for the specific part of equity in terms of percentage. As you know, that turns into a calculation of what the value is. That's a big mistake. So you just want to only put here what the price is, because the market sometimes will actually increase it for you. So you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot and do that. So that's just going to be something that I would take forward. In addition, on this slide, some things to consider to add. You want to reflect how will you use this money, right? And so you can highlight that from, let's say, a team perspective, how many people you're looking to hire. From a product standpoint, where do you plan to go within that time frame as you raise this capital? Partnerships, so if you're looking to build channel partnerships, so let's say, for example, AWS through Amazon, or if you're looking to build around, let's say, like for mobile, AppLovin or Google or Apple, those are going to be different partnerships that you can show that you'll leverage the money as you hire your team. And in addition, where will your revenue be at the end while you raise this money? So this is going to be something that you want to encapsulate throughout in this slide, so it's very clear as an investor what you'll use to take and move forward with this money and how you plan to achieve different goals by leveraging it. Number 11, the team. I know some people prefer to put this as their second slide after the title slide. I like to have this last because it allows people to really understand what you're building first, and it only shows your product or your founder market fit at the end to understand why you should tackle this. So, for me, I previously worked at Google. I previously worked at a Google-backed startup. I was also a Fulbright scholarship. I'm not trying to show off here, but as I think about in my deck, I like to put all these in there to really show that I am the right person to build the company. And so as we think about founder market fit, this highlights and really substantiates the entire deck that I made. And so by putting this at the end, someone can generally understand what am I trying to build. And at the end, it's that stamp showing that this is the right person to take this forward. So that's why I prefer to put it at the end. But when you think about how do you apply this to your business, make sure you include the experience where you worked. If there's anything unique about you that will really substantiate what you're trying to build, make sure to put it here, right? You can put logos. Images are always good for decks, but again, think about why you and how you can flex your experience. So when investors think about when they're trying to take this forward, they know that you're the right team to do this. So to recap, we walked through 11 slides that you must include in your investor deck. When you think about how do you highlight and reflect your business, it's really important to make sure that you take a calculated approach when you're talking to venture capital firms and angel investors. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, feel free to leave it below. Looking forward to talking again, guys. Talk soon.